David Friedman, the former U.S. ambassador to Israel, thank you so much for this interview.
No, Libby, thanks. Great to be with you.
Thank you. So what do you think, first of all, about the Biden administration position during the war in Israel? Is it being conducted correctly?
No, it's not. And we'll make an exception for the first few days. I think he was strong. I think it was helpful that he sent the 2 ships into the Eastern Mediterranean, and he supported Israel. But that changed as the politics began to overtake the situation in America. I think he made a lot of mistakes. First of all, he accused Israel of indiscriminate bombing, which was just not true. Very damaging to Israel's reputation across the world. He said Israel was acting, over the top, and then he started speaking about the importance of imposing a 2-state solution on Israel. So these, I think, were huge mistakes, not just in terms of offending Israel and hurting Israel's reputation around the world, but also empowering Hamas. Because as Hamas hears that the United States is beginning to force Israel to slow down, right? They themselves think, well, maybe we can win this war. Maybe we don't have to negotiate. Maybe we want to raise the price for the hostages. So I think it was extraordinarily harmful to Israel, and it's just been getting worse and worse over the last couple of months.
Yeah. What do you think Biden should have done differently?
I'll tell you what he should have done. Very simple. He should have said, Israel's been attacked by a barbaric enemy, and they're a critical ally of the United States, and they're a friend, and we trust them, we trust their values, and we're going to leave it to Israel to decide how and when to defeat this enemy. We're just going to stand with them. We're going to encourage them to defeat Hamas as quickly and as decisively as possible, and they have our full support. That's it. No more. It doesn't have to give any more speeches. And that message, I think, would have helped Israel. It would have weakened Hamas even more than what the military has been doing, and I think it would have led us to a better outcome.
הוא התייחס למשפט של דונלד טראמפ אמש מהראיון לפוקס ניוז.
I think you have to finish it up and do it quickly and get back to the world of peace.
Well, I think, and he said in the past he's used, statements like Israel needs to finish the job. And I think the message is this. Israel, fight your own war. We support you. We're with you. And do it as quickly, as decisively as possible. I think that is the only message that Israel needs to hear from America. And I think it would have helped had Biden done that.
Do you believe in the 2-state solutions, especially after October 7?
I believe it's a disaster. I think it would be... I didn't believe in it beforehand. I mean, I was against it long before this war. But I think what this war illustrates is that it's impossible. And I'll tell you why. Gaza was a dry run, if you will. It was a practice run for a 2-state solution, right? Because Gaza was 100% Palestinian, right? They had full control over the interior of their territory. Not a single Jew lived there. Not a single soldier was living there, right? They were given lots of money by Europe, by the Gulf, by America, unfortunately, by the United Nations. And they took all this money, with this beautiful territory on the beachfront in the Mediterranean, facing west. You can see the sunsets just like you see in Tel Aviv. What did they do with the money? They built 350 miles of terror tunnels, rockets, missiles. They put on school plays where they encouraged their children to hate and to murder Jews. I mean, they did everything wrong. Everything that could have been done wrong, they did wrong with regard to this model of a Palestinian state. So you can't make the mistake twice. We know how this will end. It will end with another terror state that will potentially do much more damage to the state of Israel, God forbid.
And do you think that Biden's administration understand this?
I think they understand it. I don't think they care. Because I think what they care about right now are votes. Votes in places like Michigan and in Minnesota and other places where there are Arab populations that are relatively small, but you know how our American election system works. You have to win state by state. And so some of these Arab populations could potentially swing very important states. And that's all he cares about right now. He doesn't care at all about the outcome. If he cared about the outcome, but that's what he cared about, he would say, Israel, defeat Hamas, do it quickly, decisively, that's it. But that's not what he's saying. And he's saying it to appease and score points with the far left in America that wants to hear more about Palestinians taking control of this territory.
It's being said that the Biden administration's current statement against the Israeli conduct in Gaza is playing directly into Hamas and Sinwar hands, and therefore strengthening them and weakening Israel and delaying the hostages deal. What is your stand on this?
I've been saying it for the last couple of months. I think nobody is paying more attention to Joe Biden than Sinwar. I mean, I think he's listening to him every single day. Because Hamas can't defeat Israel militarily. And that's impossible. The only way Israel can be stopped is if America stops Israel. And as he hears this, as he hears America putting more pressure on Israel than anyone else, than on Hamas or anyone else, Sinwar is saying, you know what, I could win this. You know, I could keep Rafah. I could keep a couple of battalions there. I could keep some money. I could protect my life and those of my family. And you know what? Things are going fine. I just need to continue to wait until America pressures Israel to stop. Because in this election season, that's what America is going to do. This is doing tremendous damage. And I think that, look, you know, I feel in my heart for the hostages, and, you know, I don't want to suggest how to negotiate. I'm not in the room. I don't know what's going on. But it just seems to me that this is the worst message America could be sending to Hamas at a time when they're trying to negotiate for the release of the hostages.
בריאיון הוא התייחס לדבריו של מנהיג הרוב בסנאט, צ'אק שומר, שבוע שעבר.
The fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
You know, I'll say it in words that your audience will understand. It was a chilul Hashem. It was horrible. It was for a Jewish person who claims to be, you know, the great Jewish protector in the United States government of Israel, for him to say that. But I want to say something though, because everybody's focusing on what he said about Netanyahu, right? Which was terribly inappropriate to interfere that way in the Israeli elections and to undermine the person who was leading the war effort. But there's something else he said, which I think is even worse, right? What he said is that if Israel doesn't conduct the war the way he wants, he's going to force Israel to do what he wants by withholding ammunition, by withholding arms, by withholding money, by withholding diplomatic support. So what he's doing is he's basically saying, look, I want you to run the war the way I want you to run the war, right? And for an American who claims to be protecting Israel, who's never, by the way, been in a war, who knows nothing about how to fight a war, let alone a war in Gaza, which is so complicated because of the way that the Hamas protects itself. For him to threaten Israel that, you know, you're going to run this war the way I want you to, is just, I mean, there's no words. It was disgusting. And I think even many Democrats are offended by what Schumer had to say.
Yeah, also Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, commented on Schumer's speech and said that Netanyahu interfered in American politics. What do you think about it?
Look, you know, there's interference and there's interference, right? I mean, the two countries are very close. And everybody cares about everybody else's politics. People in Israel care about American politics. People in America care about Israeli politics. That's what, because we're so close and we're such good friends, and it's pretty much harmless, pretty much benign, except this. This is a whole different level of interference. No one has ever said before, I don't like the Prime Minister of Israel. I think he's hurting the country. I think he should go. It's unheard of. In 75 years, no American political leader has ever done this. And it crosses a whole different red line than anything that's happened in the past.
We have the upcoming elections in the U.S. in November, and they will definitely be interesting. Do you think the war in Israel will affect the U.S. elections?
Well, it could. It could. I mean, I don't want to overstate the case, because the two issues in America that really matter the most right now are the economy and the open border in the South. That's it. I mean, 95% of people are talking about that. So I don't want to suggest that somehow there are, you know, tens of millions of voters who will change their minds based upon Israel. But there are millions. I mean, there are millions of people who care about Israel and want to see Israel protected from Hamas. And in certain places, those could be the swing votes. So just like Biden is changing his views to get these, you know, Arab voters in Michigan, there may be voters that really swing in the opposite direction because they don't like what Biden's doing. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, I focus less on the politics. I just want to see Israel win this war and win it quickly and decisively, because, and I tell this to all my friends in America, when I'm on American TV, if Israel doesn't win this war decisively, then we have created a blueprint for terrorism around the world. Commit the most barbaric acts, take hostages, and then negotiate for victory. Right? This is what Hamas will be. This game plan will be, replicated everywhere. And so Israel, is fighting its own war, but it's also fighting for the defeat of terrorism, and it has to win. And the fact that America is getting in its way right now is just unconscionable.
If Trump wins, how do you think it will influence the Gaza War and the Middle East in general? Will we continue the Abraham Accords agenda and look to expand it to other countries?
Okay, so look, I think the answer to your question requires that we identify the main difference between Trump and Biden, because I think that will help answer the question. It has to do with Iran, right? And it has to do with funding terror. When we were in office, we imposed massive sanctions on Iran. Okay, they were bankrupt. Okay, we killed Qasem Soleimani, who is the greatest architect and executioner of terror, in the Middle East. And we cut off the funding to UNRWA. We cut off the funding to the PA, and we basically said, as long as you're going to promote terrorism, you're not getting anything from us. We're going to hold you accountable for this bad behavior. Biden has made Iran a very wealthy nation. He's not enforcing the sanctions. Just in the last 6 months, first he gave $6 billion of relief to Iran, then $10 billion, and then this past week another $10 billion. Just in the last 6 months, $26 billion of sanctions relief to Iran. They're not using that money to build schools or hospitals, right? They're using it to fund the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and others. So if we were back in office, if Trump were back in office, that would be the most significant immediate change, and I think it would have an immediate positive impact. That, in turn, I think will then permit an expansion of the Abraham Accords, because at the end of the day, these countries, the Abraham Accord countries, whether it's Bahrain or the Emirates, or in the future Saudi Arabia, they all have a common challenge and a common enemy with Iran. So if America is strong against Iran, and they're strongly supportive of Israel, those are the ingredients that cause the Abraham Accords to expand. Now, the good news is that with all the stress on the Abraham Accords, we haven't lost anybody, right? So that's the good news. But to expand it, I think you need to return to the Trump policies and abandon these very foolish Biden policies.
What part does Gaza War play in Biden's campaign in the upcoming elections, and how far do you think he'll go in sacrificing his support of Israel to score more points?
He's doing it every day, and it's getting worse and worse. Sadly, he now has the assistance of the two most senior Jews in the United States Senate. He always had Bernie Sanders. Now he has Chuck Schumer. So he's got this Jewish support, if you will, within the Senate for putting pressure on Israel. That gives him more cover to do it himself. I think he's going to speak every day about what he's doing to slow Israel down, to keep Israel out of Rafah, to force Israel to permit humanitarian aid, as if Israel is blocking humanitarian aid. I mean, creating this false sense that it's Israel is harming humanitarian aid, and he's going to push Israel. If he wants to achieve better humanitarian aid, it's Hamas that's hijacking the trucks and selling the goods on the black market. I mean, it's not Israel. But, he'll keep this narrative going because he's got somewhere between, 1 million and 10 million angry Americans who really hate Israel, and they're all Democrats, so he's gonna work that, and unfortunately it's gonna be another, 8 months until the election, so we got a ways to go. So I would expect more of that. And I think you'll see Trump on the other side saying, look, I would take a different approach. I would cut off all their money, and I would tell Israel to go win the war.
Yeah, and do you think Biden should stay in the race because of his age, or will they replace him at the last minute?
Look, I don't think he is qualified to be president. I do think he is too impaired because of his, Not just because of his age. I mean, there are people, that age who are completely fit physically and mentally. He's not one of them. All right, so, but it's very difficult to bring in somebody at the end of a campaign. Very difficult. So I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see Trump Biden in the election.
How do you think if Trump wins? How do you think the situation between Netanyahu and Trump will be? The relationship between both of them?
No, I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be fine. There have been some reports of friction when Biden got elected. The way Netanyahu congratulated him. I think those things are outweighed by the relationship between the two countries. Look, I've been in the room with them many times. I mean, I've been in the room with them when it's just the three of us. The relationship is good on fundamental matters. There was a fundamental understanding about fighting terrorists, holding terrorists accountable, working together to keep the world safer, working together, militarily and in intelligence for a common goal. So I think everything, will be fine, and I think it'll be fine, frankly, no matter who the Prime Minister of Israel is, because I think the relationship is bigger than the people in charge. It's really between the countries and the people.
Yeah, absolutely agree. David Friedman, much appreciated. Thank you so much for this interview.
It's my pleasure, Libby.
It's my pleasure.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.